And Jesus displayed at this point supernatural perception. He said, I saw you while you were still under the tree. Now, I want to say something, but you're going to have to digest this. The question is, when did Jesus see him? Think about that for a moment. When did Jesus see him? At that very moment? Yes, maybe that's what happened. Or did Jesus see him while he was still in the heavenly realms? Did Jesus see him when he created the earth, way before it actually happened? Now, that kind of stuff is hard for our minds to digest, but that's what the Bible implies, how God functions outside of time. Psalm 139 says, all the days of my life were written in your book before one of them came to be. Ephesians 1 talks about that God planned in advance good works for us to accomplish. We can go on and on. God is not bound by our time, but stands and functions outside of it. And he saw Nathanael. Now, whether it was in that moment or whether he was still in the heavenly realms, he saw that man and he knew that that man would become a follower. You think about that and you might wonder, well, if Jesus saw Nathanael, kind of like a book that's rolled open and he saw it all in advance, can that happen? Well, that's what prophecy is about. God, knowing the future, through prophets, tell them what will happen down the track. And all of the prophecies are fulfilled. Some are still to be fulfilled, but the point I'm making is that not one of them is a miss. They're all spot on. Jesus even would have, even in heaven, unrolling that scroll, seen his own life. That's why he could say to his disciples, I'm going to go to Jerusalem, and this is what's going to happen when I get there. I'm going to be handed over. They're going to kill me. And then I've seen what happens. I'm going to die. I'm going to be in the grave for 3 days, but I've seen what happens then. I'm going to rise again. And he even said to his disciples, you too will perish. You will sleep. That's the word he uses. He said, you will also sleep. But if you have faith in me, you will rise again. I will raise you. Jesus appears to John, book of Revelations, chapter 2 and 3. And he writes letters to the churches. And then from the next chapter on, he tells John what is going to happen in future. Because the books are open before him. And actually, we talk about books, but the Bible, the right context there is a scroll, something that is rolled up or down. That's the proper word for it, but in our day and age, we refer to books. But we see a supernatural perception that Christ has, being God. But then he says to, now I've lost his name, Nathanael. He says to Nathanael, you think this is big? You're going to see greater things. And in John chapter 2, we see Jesus go to a wedding. And we see also God give his stamp of approval and affirmation that weddings is his idea and carries his blessing. When a man and woman are joined together in his name. And that's where it's recorded his first miracle, turning water into wine. Now, you might read that and think, well, that's one of the smaller miracles of Jesus, comparing to raising someone from the dead. But it's huge. You know what it takes to turn water into wine? It's not you put some Kool-Aid, solvent in there and stir it, and there you go, wine-flavored Kool-Aid. They poured water, filling these jugs. And when they tasted them, the water had turned to wine. It's a chemistry miracle. I like this t-shirt. Where's the t-shirt? There it is. H2O was turned into C2H6O. That's the basic chemistry for wine. So there was 3 molecules, and now to those 3 were added 6 more. Out of nothing. It wasn't added, it just happened. It's a miracle. Nathanael, you're going to see greater things, greater things. And in that passage, the next slide please, we read that what Jesus did here in Cana of Galilee was the first of the signs through which he revealed his glory, and his disciples put their faith in him. So he revealed his glory. Can you focus that? It's out of focus. He revealed his glory. Now get that phrased. The glory of Christ was revealed, and what happened when they saw his glory? Look at me. Look at me. Leave John alone. He's going to focus that for us. That's better. Thank you. That's better. All right. Now I need you to stay with me. Jesus revealed his what? Glory. He revealed his glory. And then the disciples put their faith in him. And I believe that God works in the same way when he touches our hearts. We taste something, or we behold something, or we realize something of his glory, his splendor, that this can only be God, and our faith connects. And that's why when we speak of the orange strategy of our church, reaching our children, our young people, our families, we speak about the words to incite wonder, to provoke discovery, to fuel passion. Because when those things happen in us, we behold something of God's glory. And if someone is not a believer, that might just be the thing that connects them to faith, and they can declare he's Lord. And for me as Christian, it affirms me. It tops me up. And I'm unshaken when the world prods me and cusses at me and throws all accusations at me about the faith that I hold on to. There's another way that God reveals his glory, by hiding it. Think on that for a moment. Proverbs 25 verse 2 says, "It is to the glory of God to conceal the thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter." God sometimes hides his glory in places, and then we come along, we build a Hubble telescope, and suddenly we can see to the far reaches of the universe, and we just go, oh my goodness, to God be the glory, he has done that. Wow. Or man builds a microscope. Yeah. And they look at a butterfly wings, and they realize there's no pigments, it's crystals. A type of crystals that reflect a certain wave band so that we see a certain color. It can't just happen, it's design. And a hidden thing opens up, and we behold the glory of God. Romans 1 says that man has no excuse because God's glory is revealed in creation. I think it's verse 20 of chapter 1, 18 to 20. It says that no person has an excuse when they stand before God Day, because when they open their eyes and look at creation all around them, it shouts out, there is a God, there is a designer, someone made all of this. If you believe in evolution, you're a fool. Excuse my French. Evolution is a faith system. It's not scientifically provable. It's a religion. But it's a religion that leads to death, no life. Romans 1 says all will stand before God and be accountable, and they cannot say they didn't know, because creation cries out. He's there. Remember some weeks ago I mentioned a guy called Snowflake Bentley. He read about Job 38:22 that says, have you entered into the treasures of snow? And people look at snow and say, well, it's this white powdery stuff, what's so special about it? But he got a microscope for his birthday. And he had a camera, and somehow he concocted it that he could take snapshots of those snowflake crystals before they melt. And he saw symmetry, design, and he saw variety. They're not one the same, but they're all artworks. And God's glory was revealed. And he gave honor and praise to God for that. I want to introduce you to another man. His name's Dr. Ivan Panin. He's from Russia. Olga, heard of him? Well, he lived a long time ago, 1855 to 1942. He partook in some political upheavals, trying to overthrow the Tsar at the time. So he had to flee Russia, goes to Germany, studies there. He's a smart man. Then he ends up at Harvard University in the United States. He becomes a renowned scientist, a renowned mathematician. They pay him top dollar in his day and age to speak to the universities and to colleges and to grand affairs. He was also a renowned agnostic, meaning someone who says that if there's a God, you can't know him. He's just something out there. Doesn't matter. Well, this brilliant mathematician, by chance, one day got hold of a Greek Bible. You know that the New Testament's originally in Greek? He got hold of one of them. He could read it. He read John chapter 1. And when he read it, he noticed that there's some peculiar word usages. Like it says there in the beginning was the God and God. And he noticed as he read that passage that throughout sometimes it says the God and other places it says God. But when he counted them, they were even numbers. Now if a mathematician realizes that, their brain starts to go like, all the gears start turning. Who's into maths, like really into maths? Anyone here? I'm the opposite. But does anyone balance me out? There's 1, 2. All right, well, for the rest of us, I'm going to explain something in basic form. It took me forever to distill this down in a way that I can understand. So you should be fine. But this man looked into the language structure of the original Bible and said, man, there's structure here. And he looked into it, and he looked into it, and he realized it's not just coincidence. This is brilliant. And you can only look into the word so long before it connects to your heart. He becomes a Christian, a Bible-believing Christ follower. And his conversion is so public, because everyone knows he's a renowned agnostic, that it gets splashed on the front of newspapers of that day, that this brilliant agnostic has become a Christian. And many of his colleagues says that he's now gone loony. He's lost it because he's now believing the Bible. But he was like Nathanael. He was skeptic. He was careful. He was critical. But he was willing to look into it and weigh up the facts. And when he did, faith connected. Now I thought to myself, if this is true, and church, you can count on this. When I say stuff in church, I don't just read it in the book and say it. I look behind what the statement is so that I can say it's truth. I went online and I looked at the newspapers of the New York Sun, because there's dates given in the story of him. I found him. The newspaper is New York Sunday, November 19, 1899. I don't know if you can read. It's small, but is anyone able with good eyes to read the top corner there? British hold escort. Ring any bells? Anyone? Boer War, South Africa. The news, when I think, because I had to read a few newspapers to get the one with him in it. I'm sick of the news of that time, but every newspaper had the Boer War in it. They'd taken Natal, or this bridge is blown up, or that colonel lost an arm, or this thing is happening. Now, why that's so special? Because I'm from South Africa, and that's part of our history there. But in this issue, we find in the bigger print, blown it up, it says there, to the editor of the Sun, Sir, in today's Sun, Mr. W.R. Laughlin calls for a champion of orthodoxy to step into the arena and give him some facts. Now I will give him some facts. What had happened is this man, Ivan Panin, I think he climbed on a bus or was sitting at a bus stop somewhere, and someone left a newspaper there. By chance, he picked it up and was reading through it, and he found that there was all this attacks on Christianity and attacks on the Bible. It's just like today. If you go on Facebook, people saying God's not real and the Bible's not real. It's not new. It was in the 1800s. I've read it there. They were militant in those days about being Christian or not. Still goes on. But he saw the challenge. And for weeks, people had said, come on, who's going to give us facts? And he said, well, okay, as a mathematician, I will give you facts. And then the next slide, you're probably not going to be able to read it, but the wording there, I've read it.